This is the Clean Energy Show with Brian Stockton and James Whittingham.
Hello and welcome to episode 63 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. Welcome to our weekly conversation about the latest in clean tech and transportation. Once you switch to an EV, you'll never go back. Sort of. World's largest electric bus fleet with mobile charging. And we debut not one, but two new segments. Groundbreaking show, Brian. Absolutely groundbreaking show. Two new segments in one show. Never happened before.
That's amazing.
I'm compelled to ask you, and obligated legally, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, but I can't wait to get to our first new segment.
You just can't wait to get to the new segment. Okay, here we go. We're getting it into the cart machine, winding it up, pre-programming it, energizing. Here we go.
I have some complaints.
You have some complaints? What's that about?
Yeah, so you asked me how I'm doing, and it turns out I have some complaints. But it's funny you made a reference to a cart machine, because, of course, that's what we used to use in the old radio days. We had these cart machines that were sort of like 8-track tapes, and I'm looking at a box of carts right now in my bomb shelter. I have a few left over from the days that I worked in radio, and boxes got shifted around, and they just appeared the other day in the bomb shelter, and I thought, yeah, that's funny that you mentioned carts. But yeah, it turns out I have some complaints. So remember last week I was headed off to do a root canal.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I have some complaints about that. But the first complaint is you might be able to hear some noise in the background. There's a vacuum cleaner going. Turns out this bomb shelter studio is bomb-proof, but it's not soundproof. So I wasn't able to cut out all of the sound, but hopefully that disappears soon. But there is an annoying sound in the background of my microphone, so try to ignore that. But yeah, so I had this root canal. You see, you've never had a root canal, right?
No, thank Jesus I have not.
So here's my first complaint. And I will preface this by saying I think, you know, the doctor, the surgeon was really good. Everything was, you know, totally fine and up and up. But my first complaint is when I had a consult for this about a month ago, she explained that it was going to be like an upside down root canal where they go in through the bottom of the tooth. You know, normally they go in through the top of the tooth. And I asked a month ago and I said, well, is that more difficult? And she said, oh, no, it's easier. But she must have meant easier for her because it was certainly not easier for me.
Oh, God.
It was very uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
But I don't know. Yeah, maybe it was easier for the surgeon. I don't know. I went to an endodontist, and that's all they do is root canals. That's their specialty. So,
oh, my God. It's bad enough being a dentist and doing that every day. Can you imagine giving people showing up unhappy to see you? It'd be like worse than a mortician.
I mean, I think it's a red flag, right? Like, you know, anybody who chooses a career where they just do root canals all day long. I don't know. That's a bit suspicious.
These are the people who are go to orgies every day and dress up in leather on Saturday nights because they have to unwind in a big way.
Yeah,
because
I guess that's it.
They're torturing people all the time.
But here's my other complaint. So you know how in dentist's office now, they sometimes have a television mounted on the ceiling so that you can watch TV while you have your procedure, and it's actually not a bad idea because it's distracting. So in my last root canal, you know, they leaned me back and put the laughing gas on, and I watched an episode of Stranger Things on Netflix, and it really helped to have. I mean, I couldn't quite concentrate on the show because
they had Netflix
of the laughing gas. They had Netflix at my last dentist, and but it was nice to have, you know, something to focus on. And so for this root canal, I go in and I sit down and, oh, yeah, there's a TV up there. And it was up high, but it's not on the ceiling. So as soon as they leaned me back, I couldn't see the TV anymore.
Oh, no.
So I don't know. It just seemed kind of pointless. Why would they even have it there?
Did they give you laughing gas? Like literally gas?
I did. Yeah, you have to ask for it, but they did give me laughing gas.
You have to ask for it. I didn't know there was an option.
Yeah.
This is important information for our listeners, Brian.
I think, yeah, they tend to, I think they prefer doing it without, so they tend not to bring it up. But if you ask for it, they'll give it to you.
Why would they prefer not doing it? The cheaper, or they don't want somebody giggling?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's potential complications. Like you're not supposed to have eaten 4 hours before you have it because some people get a little bit nauseous.
Oh, God. Okay, I have an important question for you. That
Sure.
has nothing to do with clean energy, but our listeners need to know, what's it like to be on laughing gas?
Yeah, it's very odd. It's I don't know. It just gets you a little bit kind of stoned and slightly dissociated. So, like I say on the last one, I was watching Stranger Things, and it was good to have something to concentrate on. But I couldn't really concentrate on it. You just sort of it just makes you foggy. And then it wasn't until much later I realized, oh yeah, that was an episode I've seen already, but I couldn't realize it at the time.
I was once drunk at a drive-in movies. No way to watch a movie. I have no idea. It was like Men in Black. I've yet to truly experience Men in Black because I was drunk at a drive-in. And also, other movies. But, I don't drink anymore so much. I do the Clean Energy Show, Clean James. How else are you other than that? You haven't been out on your e-bike yet, have you lazy bum? You bought an e-bike and you're not using it.
I've got nowhere to go, man. I've got nowhere to go.
Go pick up some bubble gum or something. I mean, come on, make something for yourself. You can't have a nice little enjoyable ride.
I guess, yeah. You're right. I should do it.
You bought it just for doing errands. That's what you're telling me.
I bought it for transportation, but it's a pandemic, so I've got nowhere to go.
But you brought it for the cottage so you could put it in your car and take it on vacation.
Yeah, probably next time I'm out at the cottage, I'll probably bring it.
There's probably some areas of our city that if you're new to the show, Brian and I are recording in different studios across the same city. I used my e-bike the other day with my family who went on analog bikes, non-e-bikes, and I had to go get them all ready. They haven't been used since the cottage last summer, so I had to put the wheels back on and grease the chains and things. Nobody gives me a warning when you're the bike mechanic of the family, and they just say, I'm going for a bike ride, and I said, no, you're not. They're in pieces. Anyway, we went for a ride. We went, there's these paths near us that have hills, and I like going on it. It's Mount Pleasant. It's a former garbage dump, and they have these gravel paths that go up and down slopes. Anyway, my wife was having trouble getting up the hill, and I don't blame her. She was on a regular bike. So I actually pushed her, Brian. I actually, with my e-bike capabilities, pushed her up the hill. Each time I helped her up, and she was very thankful, and it was fun. And I got a bit more workout than I expected. The funny thing about e-bikes is you think you're not getting a workout. You come home and you can barely walk. Like you actually are doing things. You just don't realize it, especially early in the season when you're just getting the legs in order and they haven't been used in that way. So, yeah, but somebody asked me on our YouTube channel, which is just past 100 subscribers, which is nice because that opens the door for us to do some more brand work with the YouTube that we weren't able to do before. A little lax on the YouTube channel, but we have some content up there, including my e-bike reviews of my e-bike and the 1-year review. But people have been asking me, can you go up hills? And I was like tentative because, I'm very heavy and I don't really go up hills. But, once you're dragging my sorry ass, which is like 2 people, and my wife up the hill, I think, yes, it could go up hills just fine. And they say that mid-drive motors are better for going up hills because you can put them in a low gear and they get more torque overall, like a transmission, going up a hill in first gear or something on a car. But, so I love it. It's good. In Vax chat this week, my wife has a coworker who is COVID positive, and she's in the hospital. And so that's very close to home. And,
that's terrible.
And it was just very fortunate that her work was closed because she's not part of the school system officially, but they sort of go on the same schedule as school system because she works with at-risk youth or young kids, actually, as a social worker. So, yeah, we're very lucky that the person who came into work, there was no one there when she did come in during that off time. However, it's kind of sad and scary. Plus, I found out this morning, Brian, that a friend of ours who works in the film industry in BC, who's working on Vancouver Island, and usually they don't work on Vancouver Island. Usually it's the interior of BC that our brethren here in Saskatchewan go work on films in BC. But he's on Vancouver Island. He has not got the vaccine yet. He's very vulnerable. He's barely alive. I would put him in the James category of being barely alive. And, this is a guy who, when he was working on films 20 years ago, had a whole cart full of inhalers that he would go through shaking, trying to find one with some juice in it, just to get him going in his work vehicle. So yeah, he's got an appointment for the 16th, and then it's going to take 3 weeks after that because there's just it's not good. We're actually doing well here, except we sent our film people away.
Yeah, no, that's not soon enough. That's too bad.
It is. It's terrible and very unfortunate. If it wasn't dangerous to get on a plane, I'd say get on a plane because I'd get you a vaccine today. You could just go into a drive-through today and get a vaccine in an hour and a half in Regina. So, Brian, I'm obsessed with the Elon Musk of Saturday Night Live. Why? Saturday Night Live has been a part of my life since 1975. It's kind of comedy people pay attention, whether they're happy with it or not, just like late-night TV talk shows. It's just a part of the zeitgeist. You tune in to see what they're doing, how they're doing it. Always been paying attention to that for the most part even during the horrible years. So Elon Musk is on Saturday Night Live, and I last week questioned whether that was a good idea. I don't think it's going to harm the company. There's always that chance he could say something stupid, smoke a joint in a sketch or something like that, just bring up any things that have been controversial in the past. However, there's been some backlash from the cast this week. Some of the cast, he's asked people on Twitter for ideas, and they're terrible, of course, or maybe he's just joking. We don't know. I'm not criticizing Elon Musk. You fanboys, just calm down right now, okay? I love Elon Musk. I would buy him dinner right now and ask him to pay because he's a tinge richer than me, I believe. Anyway, people, there's some backlash because he's a billionaire and because he's anti-union in the past and because of his vaccine craziness that happened, which I am immeasurably disappointed in him for that. I don't know why that, because that's a life and death thing, and people look up to him. I actually don't think any Tesla fans bought into that because they're pretty smart people. I think they all knew better. I don't think there was a lot of damage done there. But how could they be smarter than Elon on any topic? It seems like that was silly. Anyway, so some of the cast members have pushed back, and this is one of the things that I said you have to have the cast on board. It's going to be a miracle if they pull this off. Brian, the man cannot speak. He's not a good speaker. Even Trump, I compare him to Trump, who was on. I didn't watch that, but Trump is an entertainer. He's always played a character, and he's always wanted the limelight of the cameras. Elon is not like that. And Trump had 10 years of experience on The Apprentice, on a TV show. So he's an entertainer. He can do lines. He can stop, start, know where cameras are. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a fun thing to talk about because, it's true, like comedy and clean energy don't often intersect. And it's, clearly a couple of things that both you and I are interested in. But I sort of stand by what I said last week, is I don't think he's going to be in that much, right? Like the sketches are written in certain ways, and I imagine that they will write him into very few sketches probably, and probably with a smaller kind of role. But yeah, I agree. He's not a super smooth performer. But often you're just reading off cue cards anyway. So it's often a problem with Saturday Night Live where it's often kind of stilted and people are reading off cards. So, and there is precedent for, like, they have put unusual people on the show before. In fact, it was like Steve Forbes, I think. Elon's not even the first billionaire. They did have a billionaire several years ago. So every couple of years, they like to mix it up and throw an unusual person in there who's not a normal kind of entertainer. So, it's just potentially free publicity for Tesla since they don't really pay for any advertising. But, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Explain to me the whole Dogecoin thing, because people say that Dogecoin's going to go up because of his appearance, and it already is going up.
Yeah, Dogecoin, first of all, I think is the pronunciation.
Doge?
And it's just another cryptocurrency, and I don't know a lot about cryptocurrencies, but it's kind of a lesser player in the cryptocurrency world, but it has just sort of become popular online because it's very memeable, and there's a sort of a logo and a mascot that makes for good memes. So Elon likes to tweet about Dogecoin, but I think it's more about it's just sort of a fun meme to have something fun to share on the internet. But yeah, I mean, Dogecoin has already been going up a lot for the last several months, and yeah, it's probably more so after Saturday.
40% of our listeners said it would work. 60% said that it wouldn't work. Musk, whose mixed message public comments about the COVID vaccine have drawn criticism, as has his anti-union stances, will guest host this Saturday. It wasn't embraced by some cast members. Musk posted an Instagram message about his upcoming appearance by asking, let's find out how live Saturday Night Live really is. And Bowen Yang responded, what the F does that even mean? Because it sounds like he's going to purposely screw up or not take it seriously. That's probably what Bowen Yang thought. Go ahead.
Bowen Yang being one of the cast members.
Right. Andrew Dismukes wrote on Instagram, only CEO I want to do a sketch with is Sherry O'Terry, which is a past character, or is it a cast member? Sherry O'Terry.
It's a cast member.
She's now a CEO? I didn't know that. That's not a...
No, he's just making a joke about her initials.
Oh, okay. Thank you for explaining. You explain everything, even comedy on our show. Dogecoin.
I thought you were a comedy professional. Come on.
No, man, the pandemic's got the best of me. But when an article in the New York Post alleged that SNL cast members won't be forced to appear alongside the Tesla billionaire, Michael Shea, host of Weekend Update, and one of the head writers, mocked the assertion on Instagram by referencing his Update co-anchor. Does this rule mean I won't be forced to appear next to Colin anymore? And a bunch of cast members were on late night TV this week, including Pete Davidson last night. Let's listen.
Elon Musk
Yes.
this week. I'm guessing by the day you haven't met him yet, or you have?
I haven't met him yet. I'm having dinner with him tonight.
Oh, that's exciting.
And Lauren, so I will meet him. I'm really excited, man. I hope I'm going to ask him for like a Tesla or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Be like, hey, it's Mother's Day's coming up.
Pete's 27, one of the younger cast members, also said this.
Would you go to space if he asked you?
100%.
Would you get stoned with him if he asked you?
100,000%. That guy's a G. I don't know why people are freaking out. They're like, oh, I can't believe that Elon Musk is hosting. And I'm like, the guy that makes the Earth better, and kind of, and he makes like cool things and sends people to Mars.
Yeah. I think he's, I just, as a comedy person, I worry that it's going to bomb, that he won't be able to say 3 words straight, and people are going to highly criticize it, and the comedy's not going to happen. On the other hand, I do agree that he's perhaps one of the most important people in the entire planet as far as making changes to this planet go, and I'm surprised that some of the cast members are actually... I know he's made some mistakes and have been controversial, but overall, I would have thunk they would embrace him.
Well, and where were they taking a stand when Trump was on? That's when they really should have been saying something.
Oh, my God. That was he running for office? Was running for president at that time? Or was it before then?
I forget the timing, but it would have been, somewhere around then.
All right, Brian. Well, I'm pleased to announce a new segment. This is the second new segment out of the show. Do you anticipate having a lot of complaints, problems? That's going to be a regular thing?
Yeah, I got a lot of complaints.
He's an old man now. And, I've got complaints too, so I'll be using it as well. This is our new segment. We've joked many times that we should have a regular segment about how countries and jurisdictions ban the sale of new gas vehicles. Well, it's happened. It's official.
Oil ban.
Look, it's a very low budget podcast, Brian. I don't want you criticizing my intros, okay? That's the intro to Oil Ban. Who do we have this week with James Whittingham, do you ask? New York State in 2035 has put forward legislation to ban the sale of new gas cars, and now it has moved on to that handsy abuser Cuomo. So it's in his hands now, so to speak, for him to molest or whatever he does with his hands. But hopefully that'll move ahead, and 2035 is reasonably early. Anything later than that, and I'm disappointed. How about you?
Yeah, I think 2035 is the minimum for sure.
All right, Brian, that is our first edition of Gas Ban, and it's a pleasing segment because it's kind of what our show's about. And if you know of any gas bans that we haven't messaged, haven't talked about, you contact us. We're on Twitter, Clean Energy Pod. You should be following us if you're listening to the show. Clean Energy Pod on Twitter. Tweet us, direct message us. DMs are open, of course. And Clean Energy Show, all one word, at gmail.com. And the ever-popular speakpipe.com/Clean Energy Show, where you can leave us a voicemail message. And I'm looking forward to an angry feedback someday. I want some disappointed people. People do interact on Twitter, and they tend to have their own points of view, and sometimes they get angry at political things, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. But for now, Brian, you wanted to talk about a few things. What do you have for us this week?
Yeah, so Brampton, which is a small city in Canada, I believe the home of Wayne Gretzky. That's what they're famous for.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a bus fleet, and what's unusual about it is that they're going to have overhead charging for it. So I think this is sort of like old electric trolley buses where you've got that little arm that reaches above. Well, they're going to charge their buses that way. So this is so far the largest deployment of electric buses that can be charged en route, and I think that's pretty cool.
So my understanding the way these things work is they have them at least one bus stop, one stop where they stay. It's been a while since I've ridden the bus, but there are points in the city that, if not more than one, there's at least one where they'll stop, and they'll catch up on their time, and they're usually there for 10 minutes or so. Now, I think that these arms sort of extend up like an accordion and hit to high voltage, which are out of reach of people, obviously, and are capable of taking in a big charge. That's interesting, because how big is Brampton, did you say?
I don't know. I'd have to Google it, but it's, probably...
Alexa, what's the population of Brampton, Ontario?
In 2016, the population of Brampton was 594,000 people.
Oh, that's pretty damn big.
Yeah.
I was thinking, do they really need to recharge their electric buses because it's not that big of a city? That's what I was thinking. And by the way, Alexa's kind of like our third co-host. She's sort of like our sidekick here.
Yeah.
I would use Google because you can change the voices on Google. You can change it to male. They have several male voices and female voices. There's an option, but there's no audio output jack on my Google, so to speak. Otherwise, I'd be using him or her or they. I don't know. Well, Brian, you also wanted to talk about once you switch to an EV, you never go back, sort of. That's kind of a negative story this week, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I thought we should talk about it because I think we even said this a week or two ago, that once you switch to an EV, you never switch back. And turns out it's not entirely.
I gave some ridiculous stat like 99%. That was my own experience in Canada. But apparently people in California don't feel the same way as I do.
It turns out that 18% of electric car owners do go back to gas-powered vehicles, and it is for understandable reasons. I think the main one is about proper charging at home.
Really?
So this is definitely an issue. We don't have this problem. You and I both own houses. We have driveways. It's easy to plug in at home, but of course a lot of people live in apartments or condos where a regular place to plug your car in overnight is not always an option. So I think some people buy them thinking, okay, well, I'll just charge up at the fast charger or something like that, and find out that it is more inconvenient to do that than they thought. And
this survey goes back to something like 2012. So it's a little bit out of date because a lot of the people were using first generation cars like mine. Like mine would not be a great car to fast charge because it'd be so slow. A modern day Tesla, you could get a week's worth of driving maybe in 15, 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, well, it does say here at the end here that Tesla owners were the least likely to switch back to gas, but I think it does happen occasionally. And the most likely to switch back to gas were Fiat 500e owners. And this is a tiny little car that's a compliance car sold mostly in California just to fit the regulations in California. They're required to sell a certain amount of. So it's got a small battery. It's kind of a cheap little car, And that would be very inconvenient if you didn't have your own charging.
At the same time, I would think that California has progressive laws for forcing condos to comply to install EV chargers. I'm not up to date on that.
Yes, but of course it's a much more of an uphill battle than, say, where we live, because it's so darn cold here in the winter. Most parking places in condos or apartments already have a plug-in because they're for our block heaters in the winter.
Yeah, and by the way, everyone in Canada, if you're EV curious and thinking, you really do need 240 volt, I really strongly recommend that, because you want to preheat your car and not lose any battery strength as you do it. It just makes cold weather just painless, I think. I had a great winter. How about you overall?
Yeah, no, it worked great. And you can, in the summer, kind of get away with a regular 110 volt outlet, but around here in the winter, you really do need 240, which is, of course, another more difficult step, because most of the block heater plugins that we have are just 110. So there does have to be some work done.
That's right, Brian. Well, it's time for our beloved news segment.
What do you think?
It's what do you think, Brian? It's what do you think? It's where I save my questions for Brian, who is, he'll never admit this, an expert on all things.
Of course.
And a well-read man.
I will admit it.
Well-read man. Gets up at 5 a.m, reads everything there is on the internet, knows a little bit of everything, including root canals.
I'm a jack of all trades, master of none.
Let me ask you this. Did they go through the gum on the side of your face? Like, how did they get in there?
It was mostly through the gum next to the cheek. That's where they went in. And there was actually she sort of had like a microscope, like binoculars that she was looking into to get a good view of it.
Oh, that's never good. That's never good.
Yeah.
At least it didn't drill a hole in your jaw and just go right in from underneath that way, because that would be very unpleasant, I would imagine. So Musk says, Elon, let's call him Elon, on Starlink in cities. Yeah, they're putting another 40 went up like last night, right? Am I correct on that? Another 40 satellites?
Yeah, it was yesterday, and then I think 60 more a week ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. The only limitation of high density of users in urban areas is the only limitation. Let me say that again. The only limitation of Starlink is the high density of users in urban areas. Most likely, all of the initial 500,000 people who receive service won't be a problem, but it gets into a problem when several million people are in range of the same satellites. So what is their objective here, given that it's not going to work for everyone? Is it strictly rural?
Yeah, that's certainly the objective. This is to provide internet service via satellite to underserved areas. So there's already, 2 or 3 billion people on Earth that don't have any internet access at all. And so, imagine places like Antarctica, where they've got research stations. And, around here, there's so much rural. We've got tons of space and not that many people. Everybody's really spread out. So I'd be surprised if they ever bumped up against the limit here where we live. Maybe in the cities they would get too many people and kind of have to put a limit on it. But it's really for underserved people. If you're in a big city, you've got lots of options for internet, so you don't need Starlink.
I'm wondering if that sort of makes it necessary for them to keep it expensive at some level. Uncompetitive, let's put it that way. Because I could get pissed off at my local provider in the city if I lived in New York or L.A. and just say I'm going to get Starlink, and my neighbors could do the same, and suddenly you've got too many people. So doesn't it kind of make it necessary to have high prices forever?
Yeah, I think they, because the service they offer is so unique and so, there's currently no competition for it. There's no reason at this point anyway for them to lower prices. It's expensive, but it's a reasonable price really for what it offers. It's $500 for the dish, and then $99 a month for the service.
Okay, so the German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine, everything mine, I don't know. I took 2 German classes in university. I don't know. Published a fairly crazy article in which it literally encouraged readers to bet against Tesla stock through a short position in order to bring Elon Musk to his knees. Why is it because of the threat to Volkswagen and the German superiority in engineering? Like, where is this sentiment coming from, Brian Stockton?
Yeah, I think that's correct. The Germans are getting a little bit jealous of Tesla, now the largest auto company in the world by market cap. And of course, they're about to open a gigantic factory in Germany. They're now, the Tesla Model 3 was recently proclaimed the top-selling premium sedan in the world, beating out the BMW 3 Series. So, yeah, they're making huge inroads, but I would advise against anybody. I mean, he seems to be making a case. I mean, there's always a case to short Tesla. Lots of people think the stock is overvalued and it's going to go down. But his argument seems emotional, and you should never, ever go into the stock market with your emotions first. That's a terrible, terrible idea.
I'm emotionally vulnerable because I want to be rich, emotionally speaking. And that's not a good position to be in. Do you think any of the delays in the factory there are from spite from local officials? I mean, what's going on?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, what I've read is that, the German bureaucracy is just kind of legendarily slow.
Yeah.
So I suspect that's all it is. But, I mean, you never know. It's when things happen so quickly like this, it can be difficult for people to kind of wrap their brains around that suddenly this American company is coming into Germany and opening up this gigantic factory. I'm sure that's a bit startling for some people.
Okay, and another Tesla story that I wanted to ask you about is they're tapping a Canadian startup for battery developments for $3. Are you in a position to explain this, Brian?
Right. So the news story is that some patent applications came out or were approved, and that gets published on the internet, and the owner of the patents is Tesla, and it has been revealed that Tesla purchased these patents, 3 patents for $1 each. And this is from a Canadian company. I'm just looking for the name of the company, Spring Power International. So this is really the only piece of official news that we have, is that Tesla purchased these 3 patents for $3. And so presumably they have purchased the whole company. So there's probably some kind of a financial figure hit there that we're just not aware of. But that seems the obvious answer to this is that Tesla has purchased this small Canadian company, Spring Power International, because they had certain battery production tech that Tesla wanted to buy.
All right, this has been another edition of What Do You Think?
What do you think?
And now it's breaking news time. Tesla heavy trucking president Jerome Gillen? Damn it, these words, they're so hard to pronounce. It's not even German, or could be, revealed on LinkedIn that the automaker, Tesla, will use its mobile services approach to its Tesla semi-truck program. We've always been wondering, are they going to set up shops like Nikola was going to do, or existing shops and affiliate them? No, they're going with a mobile service program. And they are looking for additional mobile service technicians for Class 8 service, and passionate about Tesla and its mission, apply. And if you think Elon Musk is funny, apply. You will play a critical role to develop the best truck ever. Positions available in Northern California, Nevada, which looks like where they're going to start rolling things out. Possibly Ontario too, though, right?
Yeah, I'm more curious about what the charging network's going to be like
Yeah.
that, because we still haven't really had any kind of a formal announcement of how charging is going to work for not just Tesla's electric semis, but any others that are certainly in the pipeline.
Here's what I think. I think that certain companies, let's say Budweiser, or even Walmart, let's say Budweiser, they have certain trucking routes that they go on, and they'll say, at the warehouse, we're going to install a mega charger, and at the distribution center, we're going to charge something along the highway as well, maybe, or something, but just for those limited routes, and they're not going to be like covering North America in mega chargers for the semi. It'll just be for those. I think it's going to be slow, this rollout, which is a little bit disappointing, because we were hoping they would roll off the line almost as fast as like the Model X and things like that.
But you're right. Yeah, I think the initial routes are going to be kind of simple back and forth routes. And they'll probably have to be, because that'll be kind of the only charging infrastructure available right away.
Yeah, so apparently vertical wind turbines. There's a study. The axis on the turbine is different. Like instead of a windmill type of thing, they're blades that run vertically up and down and spin around. There's a study that says that design on the ocean, we're talking about the ocean here mostly, is 15% more efficient if you put them in pairs because that design works together. It feeds off the wind of the other turbines and increases the efficiency in that design rather than, and I don't know how it affects birds or anything. It may be better, it may be worse. I don't know because they might spin faster. And they said it would be even more efficient than that if put in a grid situation. I'm not sure. This is one of those things where I think things are going so well in the space that would they really put all that energy into a new design anytime soon?
Yeah, we've had many decades to figure out what the best design is. And in fact, there is a vertical one at my work at the University of Regina. About 10 years ago, they put up a vertical turbine as some kind of a test unit. And I believe it's still there spinning around. So, anybody researching the space has known about the vertical design for years now. I feel like it would have been obvious 10 or 20 years ago if that truly was the best design.
Yeah, and it's I don't know if it's easier to put on blades or anything like that. But that space, the offshore wind and the giant turbines is really going strong. And that turbine is a rooftop that you're talking about. I always thought maybe I could get one on my roof because it's so bloody windy here. I probably get more wind than solar.
Yeah, I've thought about that too. But it's also one of those things where there's often civic bylaws against that sort of thing because, you don't want things mucking up the skyline in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and bird corpses in the pool and stuff like that. They do make noise. I think that's the issue is that,
Yeah.
But then my neighbors make noise. They're not quiet. It's time for our another news segment, the EV of the Week. Another stupid intro, Brian, for your amusement. I'm decided to do this week the current Nissan LEAF. I have the old Nissan LEAF, and the Nissan LEAF is a disappointing car in a lot of ways. And it's one of those cars that people have bought expecting for a long commute and went back on them. It's in Canada. It's one of the cars that have done that. I love my LEAF. By the way, my son did a AP calculus exam yesterday morning at 7:30 and got out of there at noon. And a couple of the teachers were breaking quarantine by going to Wendy's together. And they came back and one of his teachers said, "That's the EV? I can't believe that's an EV." Like he heard about, he follows me on Twitter, this teacher, and says, "I can't believe," I don't know what people expect an EV to look like. Do they expect it to look like a Fiat? Do they expect it to look like a tiny little thing? Do they expect it not to have four wheels, headlights, and a steering wheel? I mean, it's basically a car with a different propulsion system, and it's very much a car. If you didn't know it or listen, it would be a car. But I love my LEAF. It starts out with a full tank every morning. I've got a bike rack on it. I'm going to take it out of town this week, hopefully, to the not bike trails, the ski trails where I will bike. Let's put it that way. And so the LEAF now has a 40 kilowatt battery that's good for 150 miles of range. Alexa, what's 150 miles in kilometers?
150 miles is about 241 kilometers.
I just like to include the third person in the show. It gives variety. People get sick of just the two of us, and she's a different gender than we are. So thank you, Alexa. And Nissan has a 62 kilowatt battery pack with 226 miles range or 363 kilometers, which in James's opinion is not enough. 400 minimum, I say, and 500 for Canada. So it's not I don't see it as a highway car because it only charges at like 50 kilowatts, and it doesn't have, liquid cooling of the battery. So if you charge a third time on the highway, it will, it'll get hot and it'll slow down that charging, which it's already slow. So it's not a great car as far as the tech goes. And we'll see what the new, It's funny. My son watches soccer games in Europe. The soccer game is brought to you by the Nissan LEAF, and then it's on the sidelines the whole game. The Nissan LEAF. It's like they're trying to sell the Nissan LEAF there big time, but it's disappointing in the specs of the charging and the battery size. Maybe they can't add more batteries. Maybe their design of the platform is maxed out until they can get a significantly higher density. I don't know. It's got a 147 horsepower motor. It starts at $31,600 US for the base model, which I don't recommend, but it's like $45,000 when you get up to the better spec one, which is not up to the Model 3 that you have, and probably around the same price, I imagine, for sure.
Yeah, it's only a few thousand more for the Model 3. So this is the current problem, really, with the Tesla competition these days, is that, there's a couple that are slightly cheaper than the Model 3, but, the Tesla's really the best choice, I think, for most people, even though it's, still kind of pricey.
So if you're looking for a used one, they started in, I think, 2018 with the E+, the 62 kilowatt-hour battery, which is the most range. So it has about 175 miles of range at 65 miles per hour. Let's call it highway speed. And then the ideal charge time, which is a spec that I'm going to be using more, is 31 minutes. So that's a 71% drive to charging ratio on a highway trip, which is not great. I mean, there are worse, but it's not convenient. And 6.6 kilowatt charging at home, so 12 hours from 0 to full, 25 miles per hour, which is like 40 kilometers. But only 50 kilowatts DC charging. It's disappointing, and we'll see. It's too bad because I like the Leaf, and I wish it progressed and it was competitive, but I don't feel like it's competitive, Brian.
And it works for you because it was inexpensive. You got an older used one, only 150 kilometers range. But it works for you because you have another vehicle, that has proper range. So as a second car that you just use in the city, I think it's still a good choice.
Well, yeah, as a used car, as a city car, it's fantastic. And my battery has stayed about the same over the 3 years that I've owned it. So from year 5 to year 8, the battery degradation curve has slowed down. It's known for battery degradation worse than Tesla and other places, other people, especially in hot climates. But yeah, it's just it's a little disappointing that but they are coming up with a crossover, so we'll see what that's like. It's time for the lightning round.
The Clean Energy Show lightning round.
And this, of course, is where I clean up the headlines and Brian comments on them. This is we try to cover everything. We're not just a show that talks about just a couple of headlines. We get to everything that we possibly can. And Brian, BMW and Ford have invested $130 million for a solid-state battery company. What do you think's going on there? Anything?
Well, we talked about solid-state batteries often. It's kind of the holy grail for battery production, but it's always many years away. They never seem to get closer. But it makes sense. Large auto companies like that are going to want to invest in new battery technology, and I guess that's what they're doing.
GE's Haliade X offshore wind turbines are awarded the Typhoon certification. That is to say, they're typhoon ready, which is more than I can say for me, Brian. Tesla is said to be facing 6-month delay in opening Gigafactory Berlin, based on a German report. This is something we were just talking about.
Yeah, and nobody else has really corroborated that, so it's still unknown if this is actually true. But of course, yeah, a delay would not be unexpected. They're hoping to get cars coming out of there by the end of this year, but it was always an ambitious time frame. It was always suspected that they could never do it as fast as they did it in China. So we'll see, but that 6-month figure has not really been corroborated anywhere else.
Rivian is preparing for growth because they've purchased 380 acres of land next to their factory. And of course, they are the electric truck and delivery vehicle maker, heavily invested by Amazon. And they're coming out in June. Is that still correct? June is the first delivery dates for the... man, I love that truck.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right.
So the ID4 was the top-selling model of EVs of, I believe, anything in Norway for April. So they just sort of launched in Norway, where it's heavily plug-in vehicles there, majority of vehicles. I'm liking the ID4. It's not perfect, but I'm liking it. I see commercials all the time. You know, I've seen so many so many EV commercials now every day.
And as we were just talking about price, it is coming in a little bit lower in price than some of the other ones that we're talking about.
That's one of its best features is price, I think, bar none. You get a lot of EV for the money, which is quite surprising that it's not, $5,000 to $10,000 more. So 43% of the U.S. population is considering an electric vehicle in the next 10 years. And the thing is, it gets higher with motorsport fans. 75% of motorsport fans. When people look at my EV, you know who they are? They're like teen punks or 20-year-old punks in sports cars. They're into cars. So they're the ones who say, hey, that's different. What's that? Oh, that's that Nissan LEAF. So that doesn't shock me, but it's a little surprising to me.
No, and I find like a lot of recognition from young people, like, elementary school kids will always kind of point and look at the Tesla.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car. It's a beautiful thing. When I see a car commercial that's not EVs, I think, that's, the regular population is going to start thinking, oh, it's a gas car. Joy for you. And also I noticed in all car commercials, or at least all SUV and crossover commercials, have mountain bikes in them now. It's like that's the thing you're going to do when you get that vehicle. You're going to change. You're going to go mountain biking and kayaking. Yeah, you're not doing it now, but you'll do that. And that's something I actually do. I go mountain biking with my EV. And I'm going to this week. Maybe today. There's one charging point for every 20 EVs in the United States. Well, for China, it is 1 to 5. Does that surprise you?
Wow. Yeah, that does surprise me. That's amazing because they have more EVs there too, probably.
So California is going to ban fracking. The New York Times has an article about that if you're interested. They're going to phase it out. Exxon and Chevron, though the two evil companies, are planning to spend less than 5% of their annual capital expenditures on low-carbon businesses in the coming years. Somebody's pointed out that they probably spend more than that on the advertising about how low carbon they are.
Yeah, probably.
It's not even an exaggeration. So there was a report on an argument against small modular nuclear reactors. And I found it interesting. I'll just go over it quickly. It's basically, they said that the decommissioning costs are not what they tell you. They tell you they can just put it on a truck and take it away when it's done. It's not that simple. One of the big problems is insurance. You have to have insurance, and insurance companies will not insure you, so the taxpayer has to pay for a large portion of that insurance. So that raises the levelized cost of electricity. They also said that governments like ours here in Saskatchewan, there's a few conservative governments in Canada who are pushing this for some reason, and they're pushing it to claim that they're trying for something green, but they're really just delaying action of any kind by going this route. And it's so obvious that that's what they're doing, because this could be, it could be at the end of the decade. It could be at the end of the decade after that. It's not ready. It's not. And another argument is that it's not going to be that cheap because there's no one company making them. So they're not going to mass produce these in any quantity to make them cheap. Every country is going to have their own people. We have our own people in Canada. They're going to want to sell our technology, and there's companies in India and other countries. They're going to want to sell theirs. So it's going to be 20 different players and not one thing. So it's going to be expensive. They're only going to sell a few of each. That's another argument against it. That's on Clean Technica if you want to check that out. Yeah, and Sassboy on Twitter responded to us and said that building something to save the world that isn't ready until 2032 is stupid when our deadline is about 7 years from now. There's no shorter way to put it than that, he says. Yeah, we have the technology. I read this morning California is building like a 330-watt solar farm with 330 megawatt solar farm with a 330 megawatt battery, which is 10 times the size of what we are building in Saskatchewan for solar farms. And it's 800,000 people or something that it serves. It's a significant population with one installation, and that whole battery will be there. I don't know how long the battery lasts, but it lasts long enough to cover the peaks and some of the nighttime use. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible now.
Yeah, and small modular nuclear is interesting, but I don't know. When we already know that solar works, wind works, batteries work.
If it was ready 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even today, ready to go now, maybe there'd be some use in it. But the price trajectories of storage and solar, even though it's hard for some people to believe, are still trending downwards in a big way. And that's what it looks like is going to happen. So climate change could cause almost 132 million people to be in extreme poverty by 2030. There's a negative story for you, Brian. That's not good. Not good at all.
Let's not end on that.
We're not going to end on that story, but it's a terrible thing, and it can't be changed. We could cut our emissions completely today, and the Earth is still going to keep warming. The Royal Bank of Canada, who I hate because they denied me of my first mortgage and laughed at us, I hate them forever for that, are teaming up with Petro-Canada. They said, you'll be house poor, you won't be able to afford a lawnmower. Guess what? 4 people gave me lawnmowers when we bought the house. I had lawnmowers for 20 years. Some of them broke, still had one. Screw them. I hate them. They'd like me to be in an apartment sweating my butt off right now. Screw them. Royal Bank of Canada. Anyway, if you are one of the lucky people who has a Royal Bank of Canada card, they are teaming up with Petro-Canada and Canada for 1 year of free EV charging, which is exciting for people, I suppose. Remember, though, you charge at home, Brian.
Yeah, most people don't need too much fast charging, but hey, if you can get it for free for a year, that's
Another
great.
negative story. Louisiana is developing a $700 million renewable diesel plant. Like we need that. And by the way, they're building a granola crushing plant near me, as if the refinery doesn't stink enough.
Did you say canola or granola?
Canola. Did I say granola?
Okay.
Check the tapes. So Ford is announcing a new light electric commercial vehicle. That's the Ford Transit, which is actually, some people think of as a van, but it's not a van platform. It's actually a car platform that's really high up. But it's good. It's good for delivering light deliveries, and a lot of people use them, and you'll get lots of range with those. So that's exciting to see. So the International Energy Agency, which is always lowballing things and has forever, said there will be 145 million electric vehicles worldwide by 2030. I believe, Brian, this is the same the IEA, who said a few years ago that there'd be 1 million by 2050. And you and I, not geniuses, knew better. They were full of crap, and that's what they're saying now. So the DC fast charger is now open in BC, where you can't get a vaccine, but you can get a fast charge. Unfortunately, GM is planning a $1 billion electric vehicle plant in Mexico. I guess it's unfortunate for Canada, because we're not getting it, United States, but good for Mexico. The United Auto Workers Union, is not happy with that. Yeah. Do you think we'll see Chinese vehicles in Canada? Because there's a lot of chatter on the local Facebook pages about that.
Yeah, we keep hearing certain things. There should be something coming to North America. I would think by the end of the year we'll get a couple, I think.
So the Powerwall, as I think we mentioned last week, has a top power of 9.6 kilowatts, which went up from 5 continuous and 7 peak. That's pretty significant software update, isn't it?
Yeah, so they were kind of tweaking the guts of the Powerwalls, the Tesla Powerwalls, which is a home battery. And so the actual amount of storage is still the same, but they're trying to make it more of a whole backup for your house, so it'll work better when there's a complete power outage. So with a software update, they've recently enabled this greater power output.
I was going to say that back to Rivian again, that their Amazon vehicles are starting deliveries in Colorado. Those are prototypes, I think, or are they the first off the line? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's starting to happen.
Yeah, and it's cool. It's just, I just love to see that. I want my package to be delivered by an electric vehicle. That would be exciting. Because the guy I have now, he just delivered something this morning. He's like, he puts it behind shovels and things. He goes and finds a shovel and hides my package behind a shovel. Then they take I've got a new Amazon delivery service. It used to be just like a gig economy thing. Now it's this company, and they send you 2 pictures of your package to show that it's there. And it's like, I feel my privacy's invaded. You know, it's like
It's a bit weird.
that's my front step. You just took a picture of my front step. How dare you? There could be blood there from a murder or something. EU carbon prices, we're going to end on this one, I think. EU carbon prices have just hit an all-time high of 50 euros per metric ton, and that will be doubling over the past 6 months, which is quite a jump, something you couldn't imagine here because it's just gradual. But EU is becoming, I say, the climate leader. And Brian, that's really all the time we have this week. So there has been major changes at Apple Podcasts, and they now want you to follow a podcast rather than subscribe. Why? Because they're offering actual subscriptions through podcasts through their own platform. Our podcast will always be free, except for Brian's going to have a spin-off podcast about his root canals, which you will have to pay for, and it won't be cheap.
Oh, yeah. That's expensive stuff.
So follow us if you can. Tell your friends. Give us a review on Apple iTunes. Rate and review, all that stuff. Check out our YouTube channel if you can. Thanks for joining us for our weekly conversation about the latest in clean energy and technology. It's always fun for us. We hope to see you again next week.
See you next week.